Hello everyone and welcome to the vast and cavernous comic book vault. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Dan.
Dan, today we are finally going to cover The Court of Owls.
Yay, something DC. We haven't talked about anything DC in a while.
A long time, and I gotta be honest, not to start this on a big downer, but I haven't been reading nearly as much DC lately as Marvel, and so, and I don't think you have been either.
No, I've been slowly, my relationship with the New 52 has slowly declined over the first year. I'm not too impressed, I have to say. But
I've had, well, like I said, I hate to start this on a downer, but I've had kind of the same thing. I think maybe the way I should lift our spirits a bit is to say, and hopefully you'll agree with this, that if more of it felt like this did, I'd probably be reading more of it.
Yeah.
I think this is quite good.
I think it is quite good, too.
We've been having a lot of people asking us for weeks now to do Court of Owls because it's been over for a little while, and sorry it's taken us so long. What happened was, I'll just mention this briefly because it's funny, is I didn't get the last two issues for a while because for some reason my Comixology got weird and it didn't get in my pull box, and so I had to go back and find them. And so today is the first day that I finally have read all of it all the way through, Dan. I didn't read 10 and 11 until about 2 hours ago.
Woohoo.
Yeah, so now finally we can talk about Court of Owls. First of all, Scott Snyder totally hooked me on Batman with his Black Mirror story, and I was really itching to see how he would write Bruce Wayne and if he would be as good at it as Dick Grayson. And again, I don't know if you'll agree, but I think he is as good or better at writing Bruce Wayne as he is Dick Grayson.
I think so too. He sort of blends a lot of the popular takes on Batman that some of them I like, some of them I don't really, not that I don't like them, it's just that I don't gravitate towards them as much. For example, like, I'm not a huge Frank Miller Batman guy. It's not really my thing. And in this, there's shades of that. Bruce is definitely at least a little bit crazy, but he sort of plays it up as an advantage instead of being a hindrance. And that's sort of what I thought was interesting about the story in general, where he shows us, like, all of Bruce's flaws, but they're also the things that make him good at what he does. And I think that's really interesting.
I think that's what most of my favorite Batman stories did, and of course, I have always been unabashedly a mostly 90s Batman fan. And if what you say is true, and Bruce is a bit crazy in this, he's 90s Batman crazy.
Yeah.
He's the kind of crazy where only he could do the sorts of things he does because of the kind of psychology that he has. Not as much the Frank Miller Batman crazy, where he's kind of more out there than this version, I'd say.
Right, but there's definitely portions where I can see that shining through, where he's just ridiculously meticulous. And, like, Alfred says that he has to slip him 5 milligrams of some drug just to go to sleep, and then Dick goes and tries to find him, and he's still awake working. You know, like, that sort of obsessive.
That's hilarious. And that's as far as I've seen him taken that far in other places too.
Yeah.
In other stories where he'll be up 3-4 days straight and just be going and be fine with it. And honestly, I think because of the story that's being told here, that version is necessary. How could this guy possibly survive everything he goes through, especially in the maze, if he's not that kind of driven?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Let's go ahead and really get into the thick of the plot on this. I have heard complaints about just the idea of the Court of Owls because mostly from Eric, really. But this is interesting, and I hadn't thought of it before, and I think he's kind of right about it. That really the only problem with the idea of this is that it's a little bit close to what Morrison was doing with Batman Inc. And is still doing with Batman Inc. with Leviathan, where the Court of Owls and Leviathan are very different things, but at the same time they are two secret societies that have been operating behind the scenes for a long time. Yeah. I think it's kind of interesting that we have both of those things going on at once.
Yeah, it is sort of interesting. It didn't really strike me. I mean, the comparison didn't dawn on me until I saw Eric say that in a video of his.
Yeah, it didn't me either. I just thought I'd bring it up because I think he has a good point. I think
he definitely does. I think the reason it didn't really dawn on me is because Morrison's story is such a larger scale than this one. Not that this story not that this story is low key at all, but
no, it took a year to tell.
Right, Morrison's story is sort of a global thing. And Bruce even goes through time when he comes back from the dead, or comes back from whatever happened to him during Final Crisis.
Right.
This is sort of, it's more grounded in Gotham City, and that's why I think the comparison didn't dawn on me. It's sort of the same sort of idea, but it's in a different context, so it doesn't really bother me too much.
Yeah, it doesn't me either, and again, I don't think I would have noticed it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, in some ways, I kind of like this idea better, dare I say, mostly just because it has so much to do with Bruce personally. I like both simultaneously the fact that the Court of Owls goes all the way back to the late 1800s, and that he doesn't take it nearly as far as he hints that maybe he's going to. If you know what I'm talking about, because at the beginning you get this, you start to kind of wonder, oh man, are we gonna retroactively say that like Bruce's parents were killed by for a reason, by the Court of Owls, and then even going as far at the end, and again, spoiler warning, we're gonna have to talk spoilers on this, so if you haven't read this and you don't want to know about it, don't watch any more of this video. But when you get to the end and Bruce maybe had a brother, maybe he didn't have a brother, I kind of liked that it was left ambiguous. At the same time, I feel like that was kind of Snyder trying really hard to, kind of playing both sides, hoping that nobody would call foul on him.
Yeah, I kind of got that feeling about it too, and that was sort of, I don't know. If I had to say there was one thing I liked about, or I disliked about this story as a whole, I thought the ending was kind of lackluster.
Really? Okay.
The two reveals, especially, like, when Batman goes and finds the court, I thought we would have figured out, like, who the individual people that were, like, manipulating all the things going on in the maze were, and that they were going to be important people or something, and then we just never find out anything about them. They're all just kind of dead.
You get the sense that that at least some of them are kind of high society people, though, right?
Right, but
because at first I was like, do they all live down there? Like, what's going on? But then you do get that one woman toward the end who she and her husband, but
yeah, I don't know. He set up this, like, elaborate secret society, and I figured it would have been interesting to see, like, how, or see, like, who the people were and, why they were in the secret society and stuff like that.
What I found most fascinating in the maze, well, maybe not most fascinating, the whole maze scene was just brilliant.
Especially issue 5.
Yeah. Issue 5 blew me away. Probably one of the most exhilarating comic books I've read in a long, long time. And we should get to that specifically. But as far as character-wise, I was fascinated by the little girl owl.
Yeah, she was creepy.
That was, yeah. So, like, when you say I wanted to know who those people were, yeah, me too. They've got this little girl who's all who's like holding a doll and being all cute, and then being like, hurt him. I want to see Batman get the crap kicked out of him before we kill him. Like, I was like, wow, that's hardcore.
Yeah, and I have the feeling that Snyder's going to bring this concept back, because he sort of hints at, when Batman finds them all dead, that there might be more of them out there somewhere.
Yeah, you get the sense that this is going to be one of his, big recurring bad guys that he's now, added to the Batman universe that can be utilized again. I think much in the same way as Hush, really.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the Court of Owls, like, what sort of staying power they have in this universe. I hope they do, because they're really cool. I don't know, I found them to be pretty interesting in comparison to, I don't know, in Morrison's run, Leviathan is cool, and I like the idea of what he's doing now with who's running it, but I'd have to go back and probably read Black Glove again and all the other stuff, because it's really heavy, and or dense with material, and it's sort of hard to wade through that sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I like about this is that you can just sit down and read it through and you're done. Not that we have to necessarily compare it to Morrison, but did you read any of the other things from Night of the Owls?
I only read the annual, the Mr. Freeze one.
Oh yeah, that's the only other one I read too.
Yeah. Which, should we talk about that in here? Or?
Well, you can bring it up if you want to. I didn't reread it for this.
Oh, me either.
It's not. Well, the thing is, it's not super connected.
Right. I think the only thing that was related to it was they somehow connected Mr. Freeze's old technology to the way that the Talons come back to life after they die. Right?
Yeah, that's all I saw.
Yeah.
Really connected. I think the big things were the other bad titles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was kind of neat the way they did that. That they had all these things. They had the owls attacking all of Batman's major allies all at the same time, and so they were all working at the same time. And I think that I didn't read them, but I was told by a lot of people that they did a really good job organizing that so that different things were happening at specific times, and you had timestamps and you knew when everything happened. And I like it when things like that are done. I think it's kind of interesting. But I don't know. I like that it wasn't intrusive and you could read this without it, or at least I didn't feel lost, which is why I didn't feel the need to go get those. Maybe eventually I will, just out of curiosity. At the time, I was already, and I gotta say this really quick, I was already getting kind of sick of this story when Night of the Owls happened, and I was like, I don't want this to be a crossover thing now, they're making this too big. Clearly by the time it was over, you got the sense that was always the plan, and that it never got too big for itself, and it's another one of those things, this seems to be our theme, Dan, that this reads great together in a way that it doesn't month to month. Yeah,
I had the same sort of feeling as you. I was sort of getting sick of this Owls thing. I wanted something different, something new. I think Snyder took almost the perfect amount of time to tell us now that I look back on it. The way he sort of meticulously planned everything, like him and Greg Capullo, we have to give that guy some credit too.
Oh, Capullo's art is gorgeous, and I didn't love it first issue when I first read it, just because I'm a big fan of Capullo's Spawn covers, and I guess I was expecting that in every panel. You know what I mean? Because I'm just so used to Capullo.
Yeah.
I mean, because I love Capullo so much, and I hadn't seen him do any like main panel work, and then in the context of the story and as you go along, he is the perfect guy for this. I mean, it's Snyder, it's kind of a Batman horror comic, and then once you get into the Labyrinth part, I can't imagine anybody else drawing that.
Oh yeah, it's great. And I was just thinking about how meticulously this was planned out and how much of a collaboration this was between the two of them. Like, I totally didn't see the Lincoln March thing coming at all. The reveal at the end that he is, may or may not be Thomas Wayne Jr. I thought, I was like, is this a shortcoming on Capullo's part that this guy looks so much like Bruce Wayne?
Yeah, I had that too, and I actually complained about it when the first issue came out, where I was like, why can I not tell the difference between these two people? Why is he drawing this guy just like Bruce Wayne? Because he's not drawing anybody else like that. It's not like Greg Capullo can't draw different faces. But I guess I didn't give him enough credit, because it never even occurred to me it could have been on purpose.
Right, exactly.
Now, you said you didn't see March coming. I didn't see exactly that coming, but I figured a character like that, running for mayor, seeming like he and Bruce Wayne were kind of allies, with this big Court of Owls thing where you have all these people in masks, he seemed like the perfect culprit guy to me. I was waiting for him to turn out to be evil through the whole thing.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I was kind of waiting for that.
I kind of I don't know. Maybe I should have, now that I think of it, maybe I should have suspected him, because he didn't, after he gets injured when Bruce gets attacked, you don't really see him for the rest of the story until the end.
So, yeah, and that's why I was wondering, because I was like, oh, where is he? It seemed like he was kind of a red herring.
Right.
Where maybe he was supposed to look like he was bad, and then he wasn't. That's kind of what I was thinking. I was waiting for him to either go evil or for Or for Snyder to be like, see, you thought that was going to happen, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I got a weird question for you.
Sure.
There's a character that's brought in toward the end whose last name is Powers, and is one of the other big rich families in Gotham, I guess. Do you think? Because I didn't look this up, and I don't know if there's any information on this. Do you think that's supposed to be the same family from Batman Beyond?
I don't know. That'd be cool though.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
I haven't seen much of Batman Beyond, so
okay, all right. There's this guy, I think his name is Max Powers, in Batman Beyond, who actually takes over Wayne Corp, who's actually running Wayne Corp at the beginning of that show, and Wayne in the comics later actually takes in what Adam Beechin has been doing, actually takes it back over from him. And he does kind of some bad things with it. But anyway, for a while it's called Wayne Powers Enterprises. And I wonder if Snyder is actually building that up to what would be Beyond if Beyond was in this universe, or if it's just a total accident.
That's interesting. I didn't pick up on it because I'm not a big Batman Beyond guy, but that would be cool.
The fact that it's a big rich family makes me wonder.
Yeah, and that's what this kind of Snyder's run on Batman has been all about, is sort of the power of these rich families and their effect on Gotham. So that would make sense. And I think that's sort of interesting, introducing a new family where he's been so heavily telling the history of these old families that have been, in Gotham since the beginning.
Yeah, and with Gates and Gotham and everything, with the Cobblepots and...
Yeah.
By the way, let's go ahead and talk about the maze, because, like I said, that's my favorite part. And if you don't read any other issue in this, read 5. Because even if you don't know what's going on, it's a haunted house issue basically. It's totally worth reading. And did you notice the list in the maze? I don't remember if it was at 5 or in 6, but there's a list of people they killed. Mm-hmm. And Cobblepot's on that list.
Awesome.
And yeah, there was a Cobblepot on that list, and I need to look at it again because there were a couple other names that there was at least one that really surprised me. Let me look here for a second. Oh yeah, Gordon is on this list.
That's interesting.
Well, actually, let me read this because what it says, it's Bruce Wayne talking, and it says, and all these names, the names on the wall, they're people you used or members of your little flock or enemies you killed. And on this list, we see it's a big close up, so you can't see everything, but you see Cobblepot and you see Gordon, and you see like Barnabas and Williams or William, and so I don't know what those are. But, so you gotta wonder, what member of Gordon's family, because it was probably like an ancestor. Mm-hmm. And you gotta wonder, so was there a member of the Gordon family, or did they kill a Gordon? Will the Court of Owls maybe go after Jim Gordon later? I wondered about all that.
That made me think about, maybe he's gonna sort of use that as a catalyst to bring James Gordon Jr. back, because he shows up in the first issue.
Yeah, that's a good point. Could happen. I would kind of be a little bit disappointed if they decided to just make him a member of the Court of Owls.
Yeah, me too, sort of. But it might be interesting to see if, I don't know. Snyder, with these two, I noticed the ending of this was very similar to Black Mirror, where it's left open-ended as to whether or not the evil guy at the end is successful, or at least what he's saying is true or not.
Yeah.
So it might be interesting to see what the repercussions of the Black Mirror story ends up being in the future. Maybe that's what he's going to do. I don't know. But with the maze issue, I don't know. That was probably my favorite issue in this as well. And that, to me, is like the pinnacle of Greg Capullo's art in this, too.
Yeah, it totally is. Especially the owl fountain.
Oh yeah, definitely. And just the way he depicts the fear in Bruce, because I feel like making Batman look scared can't be easy.
No, it can't, and that's kind of what this whole thing is about. And I really like how the whole owl versus bats thing is played up. And I got to tell you, I learned more about owls than I knew.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to mention, was just how I didn't notice reading this issue to issue how many little detective sorts of things were placed in here, like those little facts about owls and bats that Batman just knew off the top of his head, and all the little detective things that he does, especially in the early issues. It made me appreciate it a lot more, because when I was reading it issue to issues, I was sort of missing the detective angle that his detective run obviously had.
Yeah, and it's huge. It's actually all over the place.
Exactly.
One of the additions to Bruce's backstory that I really like, I mean, I somewhat resist the idea that Bruce ever had a brother. That did seem a little bit soap opera to me, but I do really love the idea of getting to see what Bruce Wayne's like first attempt at detective work was, and the idea that just after his parents' murder, he thinks that there's the secret society, and he goes looking for it, and he sees all these things that he thinks are clues, but he can never be entirely sure, and then he's afraid that he's just grasping at straws, and then he kind of starts to think that he really figured it out, and then he gets locked in a room for a week when he finally finds what he thinks are the headquarters, and then you get to the end of this, and it turns out he was actually all over it. I thought all of that was really well handled. And
yeah, and it makes you think too, like when he gets locked in that room for a week, was that the Court of Owls plan all along? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but maybe so.
Yeah, you know, because that's going to be a sort of that. I think that experience, adding that to his origin, informs a lot of what Batman became later on.
It's a welcome addition.
Definitely.
It tells us something that actually, it doesn't feel shoehorned in. It feels like you said, like it gives us information, because he's like, well, after I got locked in a room for a week, I realized I need to learn some actual detective skills.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting when in that scene where he was talking to Dick, and he's like, you need to keep your emotion out of a case and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it totally ends up being Bruce, you know, being emotionally involved in the case the entire time. Which I thought, again, was playing up the whole duality of Batman's philosophy, where Snyder sort of points out the holes in it, but they're weirdly the things that makes him work so well, which is a really interesting thing about the character that I hadn't really thought of before. Maybe because I haven't read a ton of Batman, but I just thought that was a really interesting part of the story.
Well, I did think it's a really thoughtful book. Once you get to the end and you realize how well everything's set up, and that it really does bookend itself. When you open the first page and you have the whole thing about what is Gotham, and Batman finally answering that question in that issue with, well, I kind of think of it as Gotham is Batman, and then his whole character arc is about actually not personifying himself as the city, getting away from that, because that's what the Court of the Owls do after all, and the Owls feel like they own the city, and Batman kind of has that too, and that's the thing that they have in common that kind of scares him. And at first, when I read that bit at the beginning, I was like, why is it that Snyder and everybody else right now has to try so hard to make Gotham its own character? And it worked really well in this book ultimately. It at first felt like it was just sort of, well, it's Gotham, we've got to play it up like that, and I didn't really expect that to pay off. I certainly didn't expect it to be like the definition of the character arc. I didn't expect it to be the setup that gets everything rolling, and then at the end it goes back to that, what is Gotham, and then he says, Gotham is us, it's the people who live here, and Batman is just a part of that. So ultimately, that was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought the character arc was really satisfying as well, because one of the things that I sort of resist about some Batman things that I've read is that Batman, I feel like he becomes self-aware of the fact that he can't lose sometimes.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Yeah, and I thought it was very refreshing here to see a Bruce Wayne that was humbled at the end.
Yeah, and that was his character arc.
Yeah, that he got some sort of comeuppance for being so arrogant, literally, like his entire career as a costume superhero. I thought that was really interesting. And something that I don't necessarily think has been done with this, well, I don't know, I can't say that because I haven't read, a lot of Batman stuff, but I feel like it's something that hasn't been done too often in places that I've seen with the character, so.
He was really pushed to his limits, both physically and emotionally, which is what you always kind of want to do with Batman. But I like that it wasn't that it kind of departed a little bit from what we're used to. It wasn't another somebody trying to get Batman to kill someone story. It wasn't yet another one of those. He was pushed in an entirely different way, and I don't know. I thought that was great.
Yeah, me too. And in a lot of stories, too, I feel like Batman plays the role of... You can either have a character that has an opportunity for change and they take it, or one that doesn't. And a lot of times I feel like Batman is the character that has an opportunity for change and doesn't take it.
That's right. He's a rock.
Yeah, and here, at the end of the story, he is changed. I thought that was really interesting.
And changed in such a way where he's not changed it's not a fundamental thing where he would have to stop being Batman.
Right.
That's part of the problem sometimes with the character is you kind of have to keep him stagnant because he's so extremely driven and extreme really is the best word to describe him.
Right.
If you have him, learn some big lesson and change, he's about got to give up his costume at the end. Batman Forever was like that.
Right, exactly. And that's one of the things I really liked about it, is because that's one of the things, another thing that I sort of resist about Batman stories is I feel like he never learns anything other than the fact that he's good at doing Batman things.
Usually what Batman learns is that he was right in the first place.
Right, exactly.
And that can definitely work. I praised, the game Arkham Asylum when I did my rewind on it up and down for that, for the fact that it was a character-driven story where the character doesn't change, and that's the point of it. And that he's able to endure these really difficult things. What Batman does here when he's in the maze is he's got to endure like Batman stories always are, but he's also got to learn at the same time how to not. What's the word I'm looking for? He's been assuming that his enemy doesn't even exist because he made it so personal, like you said before.
Right, yeah.
And so he just all the way through that, even when he's in the maze, the Court of Owls doesn't exist. He keeps saying that,
yeah.
And he's got to learn how to put those personal feelings aside and how to actually size up his enemy and basically be a soldier. And I like how much Dick kind of undercuts that, because he keeps telling Bruce that he's doing that, and Bruce is like, no, there is no Court of Owls, and it's like, no, they're right there, dude.
Yeah, I thought Dick...
He keeps saying, you're underestimating your enemy. It's like, saying they don't exist, that is an understatement.
I thought Dick was used to great effect in this story as well. He was great comic relief, and I thought a lot of the mythos things with him that were introduced here were really interesting.
I thought that was good too. Again, though, that's about as far as I would have liked to have seen it gone. I still feel like the other thing is going maybe a little too far. Again, and that's why I'm glad it was ambiguous at the end, because if we were sure about it, that would be kind of a problem for me.
Yeah.
Just because Again, it seems a little soap opera. It seems really, really unlikely. But if the Court of Owls had been around this long and they choose, their talons the way they choose them, I could see Dick Grayson being chosen.
Yeah, me too.
So that was a great idea. I really liked that, and I like that he didn't freak out about it. And in fact, I like that was his whole point, where he's like, Bruce, really, like you know me, the way you've trained me and everything. You don't think I can handle this? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I don't think he deserved to get punched out the way he did, even if it was because Bruce needed to show him that he had a thing in his tooth. But again, that was part of Bruce's character arc. He nearly apologizes for that at the end.
Yeah, he does. And that was sort of those scenes that I was talking about before, where we have the extremely obsessed and to the point of him being creepily meticulous. Those sort of highlighted the parts of Bruce's personality that he needed to learn to sort of go over. Like at the beginning of the story, where he uses the facial recognition software instead of actually knowing the people in the party, where he's sort of manipulating the entire situation for his own, means to an end. That was something that I don't know, he just seemed really cold and distant throughout the entire story, and then at the end, when we have him sort of, with his cowl off, sort of reconciling everything, he seems like a lot more of a, not lighthearted, but warmer personality than
he's taken a step back and he's looking at himself now, and that's what he wouldn't allow himself to do earlier. And the thing is, I found myself completely sympathetic toward him the whole way, even though he had that, because when we find out that his big problem is it turns out the Court of Owls really did exist, and he was looking for them years ago and could have found them, or at least thinks that he could have. And like I said, it then turned out that he was all over them, and then he was stuck in a room for a week and all that. As a reader, I'm really sympathetic toward that. Of course he wants them to not exist. Of course he wants to will them away somehow, because, this guy is the world's greatest detective. And, he wasn't the world's greatest detective at the time. But after all, this is a guy who became Batman because he partially blamed himself for his parents' death. So, of course, he would partially blame himself for the fact that he couldn't find the Court of Owls.
Yeah.
That's how I see it, anyway.
Yeah, that's the way I kind of see it, too. I don't know, I think Snyder just did a really good job of sort of introducing these new things in the mythos and giving Bruce a character arc in a way that we haven't really seen before, without really stepping on anyone's toes. I mean, you have that scene where he could have said that Joe Chill was a member of the Court of Owls, and he doesn't say that. He said that it was still Joe Chill, but you see Bruce get locked in the Court of Owls room for a week, and that sort of informs how he becomes a detective. And in a way, the Court of Owls did create Batman.
Yeah, but not by changing what we always thought it was for 70 years.
Right, exactly. And then you have him have this character arc where he's more. He's a warmer person, he's examining himself and all this stuff, but it's not to the point where, like you said in Batman Forever, where he needs to, it makes sense for him to give up being Batman now. There's still reason for him to continue.
I think that Snyder's done a great job straddling that fence.
Yeah, exactly.
Where he's adding all these great things to the background of Gotham itself. I love the idea of the founding families. I always loved the Cobblepots were part of that, and all that idea. And so, but that's not retconning. That's adding things to it that we didn't have before. That doesn't change anything fundamentally. That really just makes the universe richer.
Right.
And you can argue about other things that have been done in the past. Like Hush and characters like that, where you add this something huge to Bruce's. To Bruce's mythos that had never been talked about before, that never came up in conversation.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to decide, does it make sense that it never came up? Can we buy this? It's sort of like, can you reconcile, Captain Archer in Enterprise, where nobody in TOS all the way through Voyager ever mentioned the guy, stuff like that. So, I think Snyder straddles that fence perfectly, with the possible exception of the whole Bruce might have a brother thing.
Yeah, that's the only thing where it kind of maybe goes across that line, but I think he leaves it ambiguous. I mean, I think he has Batman in the position of us as fans saying, like, okay, how come I've never heard about this before? This is probably, not true.
Yeah.
As they're going through the fight. And he keeps providing evidence and stuff, and even Batman starts to wonder. And I like that it was left ambiguous, that we weren't given an answer, at least for now. The ending of this story will probably be informed as to whether or not we get an answer to that, whether or not I like that. But again, I think he straddled the fence pretty well.
Honestly, given the whole what we're given at the end, the fact that the kid was apparently only alive for like 12 hours,
yeah,
I mean, it really seems like a Snyder, even Snyder in writing that seems to be on the side of it probably isn't.
Yeah, exactly.
I think. And maybe it is, and it's not a big deal if it is or isn't. I'm glad Joe Chill wasn't part of the Court of Owls. But anyway, well, hey, we're already about 35 minutes in. Is there any major stuff that we didn't bring up that you wanted to talk about, Dan?
I don't think so. I would like to see Snyder get to write Tim Drake or Damian in the future.
Oh, really? Okay.
That might be cool. I don't know, like the absence of Robin and because I don't read the Batman and Robin book, and I kind of miss Robin because Robin's sort of my favorite thing of the Batman universe. So that's the only thing I would have liked to have seen. But he didn't really have I didn't really see a place where Robin could have fit in other than where Dick was doing his sort of thing. So
I think my favorite thing about this book was that Damian wasn't in it, but I'm just kidding. But yeah, I'm not a Damian fan. But yeah, I don't know. I enjoy a Batman story that doesn't have to have Robin in it.
Oh yeah, that I like this fine. I'm just saying, like in the future, that it'd be cool to have Tim Drake have a place again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, DC's doing such weird stuff with him right now.
Yeah.
That, who knows what his backstory is at this point.
Yeah.
I haven't been reading Teen Titans. I don't know what's been going on with that. I know I heard that he apparently was never actually a Robin, and so now you got to wonder what the heck his backstory is. But anyway, I can't speak to that because I haven't read any of that stuff. So
yeah, I think the only characters we haven't really touched on in the story are Alfred and Gordon, and they don't really have gigantic roles.
They don't have giant things to do. Snyder writes them fine, and I think that Alfred does have a couple of really, really good moments, and like he should, is the character that really grounds Bruce and helps him to kind of see the error of his ways at a couple points.
Yeah, Alfred and Dick, I think, serve that role really well, in different ways. Because you have Dick, who's sort of along the way questioning Bruce's sort of attitudes towards things, where Alfred doesn't question that kind of stuff at all. He's just kind of like, yeah, that's the way Bruce does things.
Yeah, well, and Dick has to question it because he has a stake in it, and I think that's important, that he's got a stake in it, and he's got a stake in it from the very beginning. That was all set up really well too. By the way, I wanted to mention that really quick. I just thought of this, the idea that his DNA was found with that Talon, and then you're like, or I think it was the Talon.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh no, what's that about? And then the very next issue, it's like, well, this guy fought me and he got my DNA on his fingernail. I was like, oh, what? It's a little anticlimactic, isn't it? It was kind of a big cliffhanger with this big, giant, full-page spread with Alfred looking down like, oh no, maybe Dick Grayson is evil. And at first I was like, that's lame. And then later on when we found out how he actually figured into it, that was a fantastic fake-out.
Yeah, definitely.
That ended up being great. Snyder is a master storyteller, and most importantly, he knows how to use the comic book medium. He knows how to write month to month. And
yeah, I was going to say that as well. The cliffhangers for this are just you can't stop reading.
Yeah, they make you want to just keep going.
Yeah, and I think that may be why this doesn't read as well month to month, because you're so anticipating the next chapter that you're kind of like, I don't know,
Yeah, I totally had that. Well, what would happen to me is I would get really excited about the next issue, and then it would come out, and I'd be like, Okay, wait, where were we now?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so, if you haven't read this yet, and I'm sure the second trade's coming out pretty soon, if it's not out already, and, if you haven't read this yet, get both trades and read it together, because it reads beautifully all at once.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Ultimately, I love this, and I can't wait to see his next arc, because finally we're going to get to see Snyder do some Joker. And do some more Joker. I mean, I guess Joker figured a little bit in Black Mirror, didn't he?
Yeah, a little bit.
But it's gonna be fun to see Snyder actually use him as a central character.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said before, like I'm not the biggest Batman fan in the world, and I can't get enough of this Snyder Batman stuff. It's fantastic. I love it.
Well, that's cool hearing that from a not as big Batman fan as I am.
Yeah, it's just
Snyder's actually keeping you on the title, which you wouldn't necessarily have to have just because it's Batman. Because me, it's like I gotta have a Batman title. I love Batman.
Yeah, we have. See, the problem is, you have Batman, which is good. I have Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's cool because that means that right now I can make fun of you for the fact that my franchise is better than your franchise. Well, anyway, hey everybody, thanks a lot for watching the Comic Book Vault. Dan, thanks as always for joining me. And hey Dan, you want to reveal what we're doing next week?
Sure.
Do you know what we're doing next week?
We're doing the Spider-Man arc, the Lizard one, right?
Yes, we're doing the Lizard arc next week. That's what we're doing. And
well, you kind of foreshadowed what I think about that.
Does that? And then I get to keep making fun of you for the fact that Batman is better than Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Right now, and so look forward to that next week. I know I am, and thanks as always for watching, everybody. Also, if you'd ever like to send anything for me to review on the Vault, I do old stuff, new stuff, single issues, trades. I review a new comic book every day, and if there's anything you really want to see me review that I might not have, send me a personal message first, find out if I have it, and then if you want to, you can send me things to my P.O. Box. That's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. Say goodbye, Dan.
Bye.
See everybody later. Happy reading.